friends over?
Not yet. We're gonna wait and see. Machine Lies is here, but
Okay. What up, TML?
yeah, yeah. Um, some other people are busy. Other people may just magically show up. You never know. You know how we do it here. So, uh,
Poof. Like slut magic.
yeah, yeah, for real. So we are live now. Let's see here. Let me just make
Oh
sure all the
shit.
buttons were
I
pushed.
gotta turn up my potty mouth.
Yeah, 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 yeah. This is serious stuff. It's internet business.
Alright, I'm locked in.
All right, all right. Um, so before we move on to religion, we'll just quickly brush on our previous topics. Delusion was a fun one that I've been pondering lately because you brought it up. So I was like, all right, let me devote some brain cells to it. Um, One question I forgot to ask on your last stream, your part two, was is it better to live in a red pill dysfunctional family versus a blue pilled stable one? And so I think we should address that for a couple minutes before we move
Yeah,
into
so
religion.
first, when you say red pill, blue pill, do you mean like Matrix analogy of
Yeah,
truth and
reality
lies?
versus self delusion world.
Right, away from what it's turned into on the internets. Yeah,
So, yeah, go ahead.
so with that, is it better to live in blue pill, you're saying stability versus red pill chaos?
Let me give you real world examples just so we're crystal clear. So family A lives in a house where mom and dad are arguing every day, fighting and shouting, cursing at each other. There may already be divorced and going through separation proceedings, yada yada yada. The children are completely aware of what's going on in the house. Family B, same amount of people, husband, wife, children, except they live in complete delusion in which they aren't actually a functional, good, loving family, but just to save face, they always act pleasant with each other and pretend like everything's smooth sailing.
Right.
And
So
so that
yeah, I can
that's the
answer.
difference.
Yeah, so I mean, I wouldn't even put these as the red pill or the blue pill, but I get what you're getting at. But anyways, here's how I'd look at it. Neither one is good. Obviously, both can be classified as bad. However, in the one where it's the truth versus the lie, well, the truth sucks in this scenario that you laid out. It's not a nice truth, but it is the truth. Whereas the second example, it's a lie that feels good in the moment. But here's the thing about that delusion, that lie. At some point, it ends. At some point, the truth comes out. And from there, not only does one have to deal with the reality, but the kind of, I guess I would describe as coming down from that false reality, that delusion, meaning that, in a way, even worse, because you find out your ego investments, what you believed was not true. That is a big pill to swallow, especially the longer it goes on, and that's true with everything. So both suck. It's a catch-22. But I think it'd be better to live in the reality so that you can deal with reality. So, example one, whereas in example two, one cannot deal with the reality until reality smacks them in the face, eventually, inevitably.
Okay, so I'm gonna make it hard on you. So first of all, feel free to expand this conversation beyond just the family unit. Obviously, this can apply to society as a whole, or much bigger pictures, religion,
Okay,
politics, whatever.
sure.
But starting off simple, just a very, very small, simple example. I'm starting with family as a very easy to understand for all parties involved. Second of all, I'll go ahead and I will be that. I already agree with what you
Hey,
said.
hey, your mic is
Oh,
getting artichokey and
oh
robot-y.
shit already. All right. Let me jump out and jump back in.
It,
Be
it
right back.
sounds like you forgot to take off your tinfoil hat, and it's
Yeah, yeah.
somehow it's messing with the. Yeah.
Be right back. BRB.
All right. I don't know if anyone's in here. Yeah. Well, I guess somebody. And what up, Machine Lies?
Testing audio. One,
Oh,
two, three.
that was a
Testing
while ago.
audio.
Yep, you good. Major facepalm. Yes, this is fucking live.
Yes,
Salute.
we're doing it live. We're
We
doing
do
it
it
live.
live.
Just so, what I was saying was, not only can we expand this into the bigger picture of society and whatnot, politics, religion. Um, I will go ahead and I will immediately respond to what you just said. Even though I agree with you, I'm going to devil's advocate against you. So, what about for the greater good? Don't Shouldn't we make sacrifices, including delusional ones, where um, faking a good family for many years is still better than realistically, imploding it from day one? Because we can go through lifetimes. There are couples whose whole marriage was a sham, and they maintained it until death. Like their kids never knew that they were faking it the whole time, and they hated each other, and
Right.
so on and
I
so
get where
forth.
you're going with it. Yeah, and there's fake gold that has been passed around that still is considered to be real, and for that matter, money, right? Counterfeit money
Yep.
that still at this moment has not been discovered yet as that. But again, the truth always does come out, and at that point, there's a bigger delta to deal with, which is the distinction between the truth and the false reality that one lived in. So I don't believe any stone ever goes unturned when it comes to that, even if it is after one's death. And obviously, that one, the person who died, well, it depends on how you look at the afterlife. But anyways, so here's the thing with delusion is I would say at the top end, it's most dangerous for men to be delusional, and it's less dangerous and more accepted for women, and even more so for children, right? So, like everything, there is a scale, right? There's a spectrum, and it depends. It's contextual. So, without getting deeper into variables that would no doubt be in the scenario that you're naming, I would still stick with it's better overall, balance of probabilities, to live within reality. Is there certain circumstances that may support your point more, your devil advocate? Sure, I'm sure there is.
Interesting. So once again, it seems that you feel like the highest priority is the truth. So even if it hurts people's feelings, and even if it disrupts the stability of even your civilization to a point, you're okay with that because you would rather face the facts, deal with the problems, solve them or not solve them. Maybe that causes your house to fail, and
Yeah,
so.
but when you talk about disrupt society, the real true disruption would come when the truth comes out, right? So there's a timeline. Are we talking about this very moment that happened, or the short term, whatever that could be considered, a year, years, or the long term of civilization, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of years?
Exactly. That's why I said, what if we kept this sham going on for thousands of years? Wouldn't that be a good thing?
Well, then again, once let's say we kept it for 2,550 years. Well, on that 2,551, let's say that binary in the binary sense that curtain was unveiled, that would be the ultimate disruption. Not dealing with reality on a daily basis. That's not disruption.
Hmm. Interesting. And so I could see this from a very religious fundamental point of view, which is why I'm always amazed at how you maintain a non-religious point of view with such honor and integrity and stability. You are a bit of an enigma to me, so hopefully we can figure that out
And
today.
probably to many more.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We'll figure it out.
I like when people come on my channel and say, I've heard this plenty of times. I just came over here to watch him, me, because
Hmm.
I want to see why so many people hate him so much.
Yeah, yeah. I'm trying to find things to hate, but I haven't found one yet. I'll find one eventually. Don't worry. Interesting. Okay. Well, that's what I kind of wanted to, get back into the other day, but we were busy with women's drama and the other women's drama soldiers. You know how they are. They just wah 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 wah. So
Yeah.
we could skip it for now.
Well, I noticed last night on Flow Stream, right? Man, I can't remember her name. Is it Lauren? Shit.
Lindsay or
Lindsay.
Lauren?
Yeah, Lindsay. Yep.
Oh, okay.
She hopped on and she was talking about on the panels how, she's been noticing in these men's spaces, kind of vaguely put men's spaces, that there's a lot of vitriol towards women. And the funny thing is, I probably do come off like that at times in terms of when I first meet a group or certain people, because I can be very blunt, especially meeting people or being introduced. And like I'll throw out things as jokes. I mean, I don't have a good example here, but a woman will say something like, suggesting that they're funny, and I'm very quick to be like, you're not funny. Nothing you say is funny. You're a woman, right? Or things along those lines. But at the end of the day, kind of answering to her last night, and she wasn't pointing at me. In fact, she said she enjoyed it, I believe, being on my panel and dealing with me. But as far as a lot of the spaces of men with unfiltered thoughts, those thoughts are true to them. They are looking at women as an enemy, some of them, right? We don't need to name them specifically, but like Fresh and Fit, there's a bit of vitriol within their messaging, right? In terms of how they put it overtly, they'll say, well, women are great and, we love women and this type of thing. But there's a lot of underlying message of, women are bad type of, suggestive language. And I do believe that is made for the grift in terms of getting the men who are already feeling beat down from society and pitted against women to further, release those truths. And when I say truths, I mean true to them, that they're angry at women. But they're missing the bigger picture, which is that there's a mission, there's an operation of sorts to divide the family structure. So it has women pitted against men and men pitted against women. And where I come in, like with my messaging, will be where women and men don't like the message that I put out, like both sides of it. And the reason is because what they don't realize is they're actually doing the same thing. They're mirrors of each other, the misandry and the misogynist, right? They are mirrors or reflections. That
Definitely.
pendulum swings hard, right? So when we look at, like, for instance, feminism, the mirror of that has been the mainstream, I'll call it, red pill promotion in terms of, oh, well, feminism bad, these women bad, they're evil, they're trying to manipulate you, take your money, etc. And some of them are, that's not untrue. But they paint that picture as all women. And the thing is, they will operate within that structure, meaning that they will kind of take that hate and push it back in hateful ways. What I would say, for instance, just to make it simple, the 50 body count before marriage rule, or, whatever that Myron had promoted for a while. And I think he's backing down off of now, apparently. But anyways, in a way, that is hatred towards women to do that, because you're further, I mean, if we look at this societally and individually, you're further degenerating each of those women. Why? Because you're moving on to the next woman. So they got no security from you, or, things that they're looking for, love, like not in the sense of falling in love, but the sense of, I would provide and protect and, et cetera, right? That I would wife up, this type of thing. So they're not getting that. And instead, what are they being left with? More trauma. And what we see throughout history, I think, again, on a plane, it depends, per individual. There's always outliers, but trauma can be, a big builder for men. It can build them, that trauma. Whereas for women, I don't see that very much. I don't know that I could even say that I've seen it at all. It seems that the more trauma that women endure, the worse it ends up being for them. Whereas, again, with men, that can be true. There's lots of men with traumas unhealed, if you will. But there are many men who take that trauma and actually build themselves to be much stronger than they were before the trauma. So I think there's an inverse relationship, which then makes sense why men have always been the expendable gender, right? I mean, that's always been the way of the world throughout history. And only recently has that really changed where, women are, asking to go on the front lines of battle
Yeah.
like a bunch of retards.
Speaking
And
of delusion.
this is why, though, you wouldn't want children in war, for one. Women are not children, but I put it as women are halfway between men and children in terms
They're
of
weaker
many.
physically and strategically and everything that matters in war.
Yeah, so back to that picture, if men are going out and dying in war, as we have since the beginning of time, I would say, depending on the society, but, as a blanket statement, I think that's mostly true. Whereas women have been the ones who have been protected, stayed home, and not to say it was easy on them, that's not what I'm getting at, but
Hmm.
rather that they could then go and repopulate society, even if there was only a few men left over from war. I mean, this
Yeah.
is how it's gone. This is life. So, with that said, that makes sense, right? It makes sense in terms of we're shielding the women from the trauma, not just because they're physically weaker or just because they're more emotional, and that can be problematic when it comes to being on the front lines, being engaged in firefighting, etc. So that's kind of how I would look at it in the big picture.
Oh yeah, I totally agree with that being a whole giant, can of worms of problem that we have. That keeps coming up. No matter what topic we're on, it's like, it seems like it always comes back to that. And so that's why I tried to address it through politics, but you know how well that went. And then I even bring it up during the culture discussions, and that kind of seems to fizzle out pretty quick because then you get back into like what is culture, who gets to define it, what should culture be, and all that sort of stuff. And so here we are. We're right back down to the roots. we're gonna start with the foundation and see if that matters or not. And so on the topic of delusion of accepting truth or functional falsehoods, because even like I said, it could be argued that you can ignore truth enough where you can just get through your day and fake it and still pretend like it's a good decent society. But what I'm hearing from you is you're not a fan of that. You feel like even if you can fake it for a while, by the time the bill arrives, it will be much more damage and much more destruction than if you had just fixed it a little bit along the way.
You're paying interest on it the longer that it
Yeah.
goes on,
Yep.
right? And just real quick in that example to wrap it up and bring it back to this, I think is a lot of women in society, I think more than not, end up living in the delusion, in terms of dating, in terms of marriage prospecting. And right, this is where the whole cat food, trope has come from, is that they end up hitting a certain, I don't even want to just say age, but at a certain age, they end up coming to the truth, and it is beyond damaging to many of them. Or with the OF ones, right? I've seen a few come out in recent times, apparently, who were big on OF or big enough that they were really in it, really doing it, and they end up coming out and saying to other women, "Don't do this. I regret it so much. I wish I could take it all back," and it's too late. And I think that's been devastating to a lot of them, and to the effect that a lot of them are dying out. And when I say dying out, I just mean we can look at many different groups that will not make a genetic legacy. Their genetic code will die off with them. When we look at the Transformers, or you know what I'm saying, the
Yeah.
LGBTQ, they're not reproducing. But of course, if we, say this, they're like, no, no, no. The cope is I can always be artificially inseminated, or whatever the case, right? There's ways around these things, and people are playing God, but it's a small number. Most of them are dying off. That is the end of them and their, genes.
Unfortunately, they're not dying off fast enough, and so this is a debate I used to have decades ago about the decline of society. And so, as you just pointed out, luckily nature takes care of that problem for us because homosexuals don't reproduce, and neither do trannies or whatever else, alphabet gang. And so the problem is, as long as you have the reproductive crowds, mostly hetero, mostly, even if they originally were somewhat, moral, religious, whatever, they're still producing these people. So obviously there's a monkey wrench in the gears somewhere. And so that's what's not being addressed, I don't think, and certainly not, because if anything, there are more of them now than there were before. And so, if anything, their numbers are growing. And so, again, like, what's causing it? How do we fix it? All that stuff.
Yeah,
So,
just to let you know, too, your mic is still
still
doing weird
choppy.
shit.
Okay, hold on.
Yeah, I mean, I can hear you, but it's in and out with shredder noises.
Okay, let me try something different real quick.
So
Does this
this is
sound
what
better or worse?
uh, I mean, that wasn't enough to know.
Testing 1 2 3 audio. Testing 1 2 3 audio. Is this
Yeah,
better or worse?
it's sounding like you're on a walkie-talkie during not World War II, but like Vietnam.
Okay.
Yeah.
But if I turn it up really loud, does that help? Is this better or worse?
I don't think that's any better. No.
Okay. let me, let me
But yeah, so anyways, but this is my point is you're saying not soon enough, and I don't disagree with you. I mean, I get what you're saying. However, it is reality in terms of, let's say, this person who you're saying their code is not dying off soon enough, whatever exactly they are or identify as, when they're, for instance, when they're dying, when they're on their deathbed, however that may occur, I believe, I could be wrong, I'm not inside their brain like anyone else, but I believe that if not before, that is when they realize this is it. I made a mistake, or however you want to put that. Like, my DNA will not go on, that type of thing. So my point is that reality always comes for everyone. Now, you could argue not soon enough, but this is just based on how things are, right?
that's
People are brainwashed into believing, into the dream that they want to believe, that their life choices, no matter how ridiculous and absurd and self-destructive, are
mhm.
good, right? They have that ego investment. The further they invest in it with time, energy, money, depending, they're buying more and more into their own delusion, creating a bigger and bigger delta between reality and, again, this drug, this delusion that they're currently high on.
So that is the problem. The delusion is the problem. That's what can indefinitely just keep us separated from the truth. Because as long as shit keeps turning, then even if it's like malfunctioning all the time and creating more problems, it still keeps going. And so I think that's kind of where we're getting at to this point, where, like, at least in when you're talking about like the economy or something like that, even any artificial bubble you create will eventually pop because it's just physically unsustainable. But there is no nature law that will override human bullshit, that will like force them back into reality or whatever. It will just allow you to, if you want to keep deluding yourself even more, as long as you can fake your way through it. And that's what I was getting at with the family analogy earlier. Was like, you can go through your entire life and never know that it was all lies, because as long as you meet the minimum requirement of getting shit done that day, that's all that life it requires out of you. But all of the value and meaning may have never been there, which you and I are arguing is far more important than just the shell surface or whatever that
The
we're
Yeah,
pretending is
purpose.
real.
I would
Yeah.
call it purpose. And Major Facepalm has a point here. Let's see. They reproduce through other means, subversion of ideology, influence over underdeveloped intelligence of youth. I agree. I mean, that's one way to look at it. However, the physical DNA that we pass on when we reproduce, that there's no way to get around without that occurring. But I do agree, the spirit can live on through the influence that they have, which is not a good thing if we're talking about bad things, and we are.
Right. And so obviously I want to focus on just, going back to more fundamental approaches to life and philosophy and reality and stuff like that. And so I've already backtracked from, politics to culture to, whatever the latest, trend is that we're dealing with. Like I said, the latest trend
Delusion.
is like grifting for
Yeah.
doomsday, anti-feminism or whatever, just whatever the flavor of the week is. Yeah, evolution. That's another one. I don't even know. Have you ever heard any good evolution debates lately? I mean, I think that's kind of fizzled out at this point. But
No.
um, so going back to religion, or even before we get to religion, here's the way I have always approached life, and I recommend to others. So if you're searching for truth, and that seems to be the magic word that most of us good and intelligent people keep bringing up as for some reason is more important than other things. How do we arrive at truth? Like, what's the methodology to understand and perceive such things? And so I think we can all agree that philosophy is like the roots of the tree. Like without philosophy, you can't even discuss topics like science or religion or whatever. And so once you establish good, sound, logic and axioms and rationale and all that sort of stuff, you don't have to dwell on it forever like those, college hippie professors that keep asking, is anything real, or are we butterflies dreaming we're humans or whatever? And once you get past that, I think this is where humans start to kind of gloss over things too quick and then start fucking stuff up. So I think you can agree that most humans are pretty good on certain topics like science, for example. I think you would agree that most humans have a pretty decent grasp of science. Would you agree?
Sure.
Okay, so I'm going to use that as an analogy in a minute. I just want to kind of get your perspective on this. So even though science seems pretty simple, like we don't really debate science that often. I mean, we've pretty much settled, the main stuff, like what atoms are and what electricity is, and how it works, and chemistry and all that fun stuff that we learned in high school. Even that has this weird little squirrely side to it that a lot of people like to pretend doesn't happen, but is a very real and important part of reality. Is there are people that still struggle with science, and so there's your first indication of what's about to happen once you switch over to religion. So, on the topic of science, I'm gonna guess and assume that you're a fan of astronomy, correct?
No.
You don't believe that we understand the science of the stars and planets and how they orbit each other and physics and stuff like that?
You didn't ask me that. You said, "Am I a fan?"
I mean, of the in general, not like personally invested. I mean, like in general, you accept what astronomers claim that the sun is the center of our system and the Earth orbits it at a certain speed and momentum, yada yada yada, all that stuff.
Uh, so I'll answer this as yes, but I don't care. Like it
Okay,
doesn't.
okay.
I'm not invested in it. It
You don't
doesn't
think
matter to me.
it's like an illusion or something like that? You're pretty sure it's real, correct?
No, I don't think it's an illusion. I just don't care. It's like flat Earth. I don't care if it's flat. I don't
Oh,
believe
okay.
it's flat, but I just don't give a shit.
Let's address that question. Do you have you decided for yourself whether or not you believe the Earth is round or flat? Let's start there.
Yeah, I believe I believe it's more round than flat. And if it came out tomorrow that it was flat Earth, what flat Earth means, I guess, which kind of depends on what flat Earther you're talking to, then I wouldn't care. I wouldn't be like, oh my God, my life is changing. I just wouldn't give a shit.
I think you would care enough that you grew up most of your life believing like we went to the moon and stuff like that, and
No, no,
that.
no, 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 no.
Okay.
Because I don't. It's not a binary for me. I'm not invested. Like, oh, we definitely went to the moon. I don't think that. Do I believe that we probably did? Yeah, I guess so. I've seen the moon landing, right? That it didn't happen. I've seen some of those, and I've seen the mainstream. So I more so would think at this point that we did go to the moon. But if it turned out tomorrow that it all came out, it was admitted that we didn't, I don't give a shit.
Okay. That's an interesting take because generally speaking, most people kind of fall into the camp that they do accept most of the mainstream science and stuff like that. And I'm not talking about, the recent fuck ups with like vaccines and
Oh yeah, yeah. We're
shutdowns,
gonna
whatever.
omit that from the mainstream science, right? But
No,
this is my point. I more so believe that what you're referring to right now was a bunch of baloney, but there is some truth to it. You could get sick. I got it 3 times,
hmm
and did we need that jabby thing? No, I didn't get one. But
So
a lot of people believed in it, and they got it based on what science.
do you feel that the recent fuck up in medicine has led to your more skeptical view of science
Let's
now?
be clear. It's not just a recent fuck up of medicine. Well before the jabby shit, there was plenty, and I mean plenty, of vaccines on the market that are being. I don't know if I'd use the word advertised, but let's say suggested by pediatricians right from birth. A lot of them have a lot of not good side effects. Now, again, I'm not in the binary of don't get any shots. I did not say that, and I have plenty. I was in the Marine Corps, so I got every fucking one you could think of.
hmm
But with that said, there's plenty of them that people don't need. But you're at the child doctor, and they're just like, oh, here's 100 different ones on this sheet of paper. And I'm talking a little bit abstract. Let me just tell you real quick. So I have a friend, right? He's a good friend, and he had a home birth for his daughter, and so you know what that means. There was no hospital,
Yeah.
etc. And when he finally took his daughter to the doctor's pediatrician for the first time, and kind of very short backstory, but he himself had gone to this pediatrician when he was a kid, and this is kind of the only one that he knew, although there's plenty around. And so he decided to go there, and it turned out it had been taken over kind of like by I don't know if it was by the county or the city or what, but let's just say it was no longer as private of a practice as it was. And anyways, when he went in there, his daughter was maybe like 6 months or a year old. I don't remember exactly. And the doctor comes in, some young doctor lady, right out
hmm
of med school type shit,
Sure.
and she hands him a paper with all these different shots that you can get, and it was front and back, maybe 100 different vaccines, whatever. And he said to the doc, he said, which ones do you suggest? And she said, all of them.
Wow.
And he said, when did you graduate again? Do you
Yeah.
even know what these shots mean? And it starts like digging into them. And
Whoops.
right, I don't remember what all of them were. I don't think he
They're
even knew what they were.
yeah.
But the point is, he started. And then she says, "Oh, and we'll get daughter on fluoride pills." And then he shoots back. Do you even know what fluoride does when it's ingested into the body? Right, not just brushed on the teeth. Are you aware of the calcification of the pineal gland, etc.? And at this point, she ran out of the room crying.
Oh,
The doc.
she probably went to her support animal and got comfort, for being challenged. And
Anyways, I know that was a little bit long-winded,
no,
but
no,
just to get
you're
at,
illustrating my point perfectly. You're doing it perfect. This is exactly what I'm talking about. This is why I'm saying, like, I can't even tell you how, so long ago in a galaxy far, far away, where there was a time where humans weren't this retarded. They were actually halfway intelligent, and we could have conversations about, like, so for example, vaccines. I'm sure you're generally aware of the certain words like polio, measles, mumps,
Yeah,
rubella, stuff,
yeah, yeah,
and you can crack open a history book and find out, was that actually worth our time and effort, and what all the doctors agreed.
but
It's
yeah,
not.
but when you say history book,
Yes.
here, and I don't know specifically as per this topic that this applies, but I'm going to say generally it does.
Uh-huh.
The history book, it's going to depend on who wrote it, the
Okay. Yeah.
revisions, right? How many have been phased out due to government contract,
Sure.
this sort of thing. So I hear you, and I think that there is, it can be worthwhile to dig into that stuff, but I think that's only half of the picture. The other half, aside from the knowledge, aside from accepting science or rejecting whatever,
Uh-huh. Sure.
would
Sure.
come the intuition, what I'll also call common sense, and that is being clouted by the delusion, by the drug intake of people societally. And again, I mean drug as in widely, vastly, not just hard drugs, but those kind of delusional cushions from reality,
Definitely.
have affected people's not just their ability to think, like in terms of cognitively, but also our intuition. Which, if you look at intuition, where does it come from? What we call instinct. It kind of comes down to, my understanding at least, you can see if this is yours, it comes down to all sorts of different mechanisms that affect our senses, our five senses, right? And many of them are in ways that we can't interpret on the surface, but our body knows what to do with them. Meaning that, you've seen movies or maybe experienced in your real life where it's like, oh, I got a chill, something's in the air, something's going to happen, right? It's not
Mm-hmm.
that they're fucking magicians or genies or, right, they don't have supernatural powers. It's the fact that their senses are picking certain things up, which can be as vague as a smell that you can't identify, right? You can't on the surface in the, frontal gland say, oh, this is what the smell is, therefore
Right.
I know this. But your body, picks up different,
I
again,
think the
whatever
phrase
these.
you're looking for is gut feeling, is what you're trying to describe. I know what you're saying, and
Well,
so
yeah, this is interchangeable. I mean, the way
right.
that
Right.
I look at it. But yeah, sure, the gut feeling that is often
Um.
misinterpreted as some kind of magic, right? Like, oh,
Right.
this
Right.
person's special, but it's not that. It's that they're very in tune, or let's
I
say their body is able to be in tune with whatever is being put out.
I can address the topic if it's that important. My feeling on intuition and or instincts is basically biology mixed with a little bit of evolution from conditioning. And so
Sure,
conditioning is, once the biology set in stone, now what happens to it, and it's usually environment as you're being raised, parents, um, experiences, whatever. And then as you get later in life, it basically fades away into full free will, where you're fully aware and in control of all thoughts and processes. So I understand what you're saying, and it's a variable we have to deal with, and it's certainly an important one, and it should be properly understood. I agree. Um, and
well,
so that will help us start getting
yeah, yeah. But did did,
away
did you
from
get
science.
did
Yes.
you get the overarching
Yes,
point,
yes,
which I was trying to make?
that there are
Is it?
some things that we have a gut feeling about that we just can't explain in like physical terms. It's definitely this neuron firing that caused this chemical reaction, so on and so forth, because it's you can't always describe all things in life in purely physical terms. And so that's where instinct starts to kind of, get into the gray waters of, like, what is real and what is properly truth understanding, what versus what is like intuition, and what's like gut feeling and guesstimating. And but
Right, but what I'm saying is, I'm putting it, my opinion, I guess I'll say, is that it's half and half. It's not just the factor of, people aren't smart enough, they're not thinking enough, this sort of thing. But it's also that they're so clouded beyond their cognitive ability, right, that affects their perception of what we're referring to as gut feeling.
And getting kind of back to like the core of the truth seeking, this is where now you understand why this whole dance is so complicated and so it gets dangerous very quick, because anytime you start glossing over certain things, it will most likely be to your detriment later on, because you'll be like, what's all this philosophy stuff? I don't care. Moving on. Let's do the science. And then you start doing the science and you forgot, what are axioms and what are, truth standards and whatever. And so now you're like, oh yeah, I forgot to, note the important stuff. And likewise, once we start looking at science versus religion stuff, that's where it just completely falls apart, because now you're talking about humans who already failed science. It's like science was the easy one, by the way. That's the one we shouldn't be debating at all. Like, let me give you an easier example. I gave you some sort of abstract examples, but I can give you just easier examples. So in your own personal life, you are able to make your own easy science observations and decisions. Like, you understand the difference between like solid objects, liquid objects, gaseous objects, stuff like that. So,
well, I was going to say I put water in the freezer and it turns into ice.
Yep. So that's science. You see, you're doing science right
I'm
there.
doing science. Bill Nye.
So now you know that at 0 degrees Celsius, water turns into ice. At 100 degrees, it turns into steam, and you can do all this on your own. You don't have to take the word of some other scientist.
I've repeated this experiment over and over, and it continues to be true.
There you go. So that's science. So likewise, I personally can tell you all about the science I've learned in my lifetime, and what I know is true, personally true. I've verified it with my own eyes. And so the science I understand may be a little more advanced than the average Joe, because again, I'm an engineer by trade. I don't know if you're familiar with engineering, but it's basically like all of the hardest shit humans can ever imagine possible, and we have to learn all that stuff, like A to Z, and be able to do it in a heartbeat, because bridges fall apart if we don't do it right and stuff. So, and by the way, bridges are falling apart, so there's your answer. Are your local engineers qualified or not? You don't have to ask. You just watch the buildings implode on themselves while there are people in it, and so you're like, nope, you fucked up. That was your job, and either you understand the science or you don't. And so, and of course, they'll make excuses. They'll say, well, it wasn't my fault. I understood the science, but the politicians, blah, 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 money, power, greed, stupidity, whatever.
Well, I was going to say, in some term, I would think that is true to some degree. I'm not saying that's most of it. I'm just saying to some degree, they're aware of the flaws, the problems, the timeline in terms of, how long this structure will be good. And, they turn a blind eye at times, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And whether it's out of pure stupidity, by the way, there are absolutely fucking retarded engineers out there. I hate to scare you, but up in those ivory towers where all the good and intelligent people are supposed to be, I've worked with engineers that like don't know what a slope is. And so like, if you don't understand the concept of like rise over run, and you know how like water flows downhill, that's like a slope. And so if you don't understand that concept, you're going to have a bad time with engineering, because like we got to know shit that's like way more advanced than that, and way more.
Yeah, but beyond just what you're getting at with the engineering aspect, I actually do know, or I did know, an engineer, and I can't remember exactly what kind of engineer he was, but he graduated from a prestigious school and got his master's, making lots of money within the engineering trade.
Which doesn't mean anything.
And meanwhile, well, all of these things mean something.
No, that's my point. Even if you graduated from Harvard or MIT or whatever with an engineering degree, again, I worked with these people. So there are ways around those systems. First of all, if you're like the son of a senator or something like that, it turns out you don't actually have to study or pass any of your classes. Strings will be pulled and you can graduate anyway with a degree in anything these days. So
No,
that
no,
there
I
is no
understand that.
guarantee.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but I'm saying nonetheless, that's sort of his resume. And when it came to things like, oh, we need more fluoride in the water. We need citizens should not be allowed to own firearms. And meanwhile, he lived in Chicago, so you can connect two and two there. So when it came to things that I would think of as pretty common sense, intuitive, if we look at the big picture, he was fucking retarded.
There's another oxymoron, common sense. What does that phrase even mean anymore? But I
Rare
get your I
sense.
get your point. I get your point. And so yeah, there's a lot of expectations we have about our society that are not being met. And so that's a perfect segue into now the most complicated subject of religion. So the way I approached religion was, by the way, for what it's worth, I'll just share anecdotes if it helps you. I was born and raised half Christian, half atheist. So basically, one parent, believed in none of the above, and one parent was a Church of Christian, for whatever that's worth. And so I have been introduced to both worlds, and then when I was old enough to make my own decision, I pretty much ignored both parties and just formulated my own thoughts and asked my own questions and created my own path. Anywho, long story short, through the process of learning truth from philosophy, once I mastered science, because like I said, there is nothing beyond engineering. Engineers are the ones that know all of the science, and it's mind numbing. It makes your eyes go cross, but I get it. I understand it. Yay, move on. So then I moved into religion, and so I'm kind of curious. I think we talked briefly before about your particular views on religion. I think you're somewhere in the realm of agnosticism. You're basically a deist that is open to the idea of theism, but you're not really that interested or invested that much time and energy, correct?
Yeah, I believe in what, in a sense, you could refer to as God, but I would call it love. And I think that the two are interchangeable.
Let's call
And
it a higher power for now. We'll get to love in a minute. So would you agree that there's a higher power than yourself, or just like the Earth or the sun or whatever?
yeah,
Okay, and that's fine if you call it love, but like I said, let's just try to stick to terms that are universally applied to all human beings, and then we'll see who
love.
fits in what pegs.
Uh, I know who likes to get pegged, Andrew Wilson.
Yeah,
Go
yeah,
on.
yeah, that always comes up for some reason. The highest power is where I started my journey. I was like, what is the highest power? Like, is there a higher power? How do we know it, and what does it look like, and all that jazz. So there's logical journeys you can go through. You can go right back to the philosophy crowd and just skip all the science debates and all the religion proclamations or whatever, and just go back to philosophy. And so that's one path, and it has kind of weird mental gymnastics you have to do to get there, but it is possible to start that journey. That was one uh, idea I had, but didn't waste too much time and energy on. And then after, by the way, when science couldn't answer questions, that's where religion began. Like that's why I was like, okay, like where did life come from? What is intelligence, and where does it come from, and how do we recognize it, and so on and so forth. And then later on, I even got stuck on another little glass ceiling called sentience. Like where does sentience end and where does sapience begin, and does sapience exist? And so this is where you may have started recognizing some of our previous conversations about ethics versus morality. And so this is where I would propose this is the bridge you have to cross. There is no way
I
around.
have to.
Yeah, you have to. So
What bridge do I have to cross?
from physical to non-physical things. So do you believe that non-physical things exist?
Love.
Okay.
Yeah, that would be a non-physical thing
Okay. So the bridge from
or description.
science to
Yeah.
religion in this case is is um, your insistence that this word love
Is
has
faith. It's
reality.
faith. I believe the bridge would be faith, right? Because science is
That's
believe because we
one.
can see it, right?
That's
Whereas
one
religion is
way.
not.
That's one way to cross the bridge.
Okay.
Let me give you the easiest bridge. Here's one that I can even get atheists to agree on. Putting God and religion aside for now, just talking about physics versus metaphysics. Um, Love, ideas, math, truth, sapience, all these free will, all this stuff. Um, the bridge between physical and non-physical is currently best described in the human mind. That's the only word that humans can comfortably use and kind of understand what they're saying. So you'll notice some people who completely refuse to acknowledge that that metaphysics exists. They think that everything in reality is physical. Once you bring up the mind, you ask them, well, then what is the mind? They will say it's just your brain. Your brain is your mind, and that's it. That's the end of the story. And so they run into the problem that we're just star stuff. We're hairless monkeys. If you start shaving little layers of the brain off, you're actually like removing the existence of that person. So what they can't seem to figure out is if you give them an actual real human being that's missing like half of their brain, like physically, like half of their brain is gone, does that mean they're half of a person? And they can't answer that question because, according to their logic, the answer is yes, they are half a person. They're not even like a whole person. And so, obviously, they have to do all kinds of mental gymnastics to not sound mean or condescending or whatever. It doesn't matter. That's their beliefs. They're stuck with it. People who aren't retarded understand that the mind is the bridge into this realm that some humans have great trouble describing, like ideas, love, abstraction, information, math, logic, all this stuff. Um, and none of these things have physical properties. So how do you get to this realm? How do you even experience it? Like, how do you describe it? And all these fun questions. So I will just propose that the mind is the bridge. It's basically this weird place in space and time which humans easily recognize. They easily recognize that yes, we are physical beings. We're physical animals. Blood meat bags, but at the same time we are much more than that. We're this deeper consciousness and this weird abstract AI floating around in this weird ether that no one can put their finger on or whatever, but they know it's out there somewhere. They just can't describe it or whatever. So would you think that would be a pretty logical, rational way to approach it, or do you think we're already going off in the weeds here?
Yeah, I mean, I get it.
Okay, all right. So now that we're leaving the realm of the physical and we're crossing the bridge into the non-physical, um, now we can discuss other more fun topics. So you started with like the concept of love or whatever, and we can include all kinds of things like knowledge, information, logic, mathematics, all that stuff. That's the boring stuff. That's the only parts that the atheists want to talk about, by the way, because the second you start mentioning like free will and then souls and then of course sky wizards and stuff like that, then they're like, I'm out now. I don't want to hear your stupid religion. Fuck you and stuff like that. So that's the end of the conversation with them. So I would suggest that if you really are seeking the truth, that you shouldn't just be so narrow-minded, and open your mind to that possibility that maybe there is a way to approach this thing called love or the highest power or uh, the the short word is God. I believe is what most humans just have attributed to this term. Um, so, do you think that God is discoverable? You describe him as love. So, how do you know he exists, and how are you introduced to him?
Well, he.
She,
Uh,
whatever. You can pick the gender. I don't care.
well, no, no, no. I don't mean it in terms of
Or
gender.
it. You can
I
call it
mean it.
it, by the way,
Well,
if you don't
well,
feel like it's a person.
well. Yeah, it's not a person to me. It's
Then
great
call it
love.
it. Say it.
Well, I say love.
How did you know it exists or it is real?
Yeah. Well, so first, when we look at love, because it is non-physical, doesn't mean, because it's quite the opposite in showing love, that it is a physical action. It turns into, if you're showing love to yourself, then, for instance, you're eating healthy or you're not doing things to, fuck yourself up, of course. And again, there's no binary. It's not one loves themselves or one doesn't. But when we look at, for instance, the love that parents, not all, but obviously some do have for their kids, right? The unselfish actions, the sacrifice at the highest form, I would say, sacrifice of life for someone else. That is love being shown. So, in a sense, I don't even have to believe it. I've seen it. I think maybe where the belief comes in is you never know what's in someone's mind. Somebody can do good actions with bad intentions, or bad intentions and end up being good actions, right? So we never know what's in somebody else's mind. But I've witnessed love, and therefore, I believe it. I believe it. I believe in it.
Do you feel like it's? I don't want to drag us back into the physical world, but I feel like you're not providing me things that can't be answered in the physical world. So like, if love is just this emotion that we're perceiving in our
Nope.
physical.
Nope.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
It's not an emotion.
Love
Nope.
isn't an emotion. Oh, interesting.
No,
So
no,
is
no,
it?
no, 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 no,
Go ahead.
no. Being in love, that's an emotion. What people often describe as love, right? Like, have you ever seen a couple so in love? That's emotion that they're speaking of. That is not what I would refer to as love. And I know there's a bunch of different definitions and,
Well, you described family sacrifice and stuff like that. That's fine, but that still can be explained through physical. Don't animals sacrifice themselves for their families?
yeah, yeah, I believe that animals do love. I'm
Okay,
not taking that away from them.
okay, so animals can love. All right, so then why do you need any non-physical explanation? Because these all can be explained in physical terms. Also, real quick question. Um, is this love entity thing, is this sort of like some sort of like giant cosmic wheel that has an equivalent to like gravity or something like that? Or is it just like some local interpretive thing that only happens to certain perceptions or whatever? I'm lost.
Yeah, I got a little lost with that question.
Okay, so you agree that gravity is real, correct?
Yeah.
And that it's universal. It's like no, it doesn't matter where you are in the universe. Gravity is real, whether you believe in it or not. It is the one true force that rules all of our universe.
Yeah, but it's not the same wherever you go. It changes.
It is, but okay.
Well, I don't even know if the word is it changes. Its effects can vary.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that's part of gravity. I didn't say gravity's constant all over the universe. I just said it's there. Whether it's stronger or weaker in certain regions is irrelevant. It's still
Right, it's
gravity.
ever present.
Yeah. And it's objective. It's not. It's not whether or not you perceive it or believe it. It's definitely real, and it's definitely a force that controls pretty much everything.
Um, force that controls.
I mean, I don't want to get into nerd language with you, but we can get into electromagnetic, forces and shit like that. But I'm just simplifying it for the layman crowd. That it's gravity. Gravity is just this giant force that forces things together, causes friction and energy and thermodynamics and yada yada yada. But again, just simplify it.
It
It's gravity.
affects. Yeah, it affects everyone.
Okay. Likewise, I'm trying to see if I can find your love entity, and I'm guessing it's somewhere in the non-physical realm. Is it a similar entity where it's like it universally applies to all beings, and it's just like some perceive it differently, some think it's sacrifice and family, others thinks it's lust and
Sure, sure.
companionship.
Some try to deny it.
Right,
and
right. And
that
some people deny
right.
it, and that's where we get hate. I get all this, and so is that what you're saying? Is it sort of like this giant cosmic wheel that like kind of like controls the spiritual realm or something like that? Is that where you're going with that?
Well, I think like gravity, it's ever present, and people can ignore it just like they do with gravity.
Okay.
But then eventually they find out the truth. And sometimes that means their face gets smashed in.
Interesting. By the way, I'm curious why you didn't choose truth as this, metaphysical god instead of love. Because, like, why love? I mean, why not indifference or something like that? Why can't this highest power show itself through love and hate? Can it not choose or manifest itself in different ways, or what's the deal?
I don't think that love has cognition or choice. It's not a living being, right? It doesn't make decisions or actions. But like gravity, it's here. And if there was no love, then this Earth would not exist. Just like if there was no gravity, it wouldn't exist
Okay,
in the sense of us being here.
so I think you've clearly answered my question. Remember earlier when I said I wasn't sure if you were like mostly deist but kind of open to theism? It sounds like you're not interested in theism because theism is that divide between the non-personal higher power and just some force. It's like gravity. It's like this cosmic wheel out in the metaphysical realm that is its own entity, but it's definitely not a person you can talk to that thinks and chooses its own decisions or makes its own ideas or whatever. Correct?
Yeah, no, it doesn't. Yeah, yeah, sure.
Okay,
As
so in your reality, the only intelligent beings are humans, maybe some certain animals, or what would you say?
yeah, like me. Yeah,
Yeah. Do you think there's a difference between the consciousness of animals and humans?
sure. There's a difference between human to human consciousness.
Well, I mean, there's similar enough that they can be grouped together. Are you familiar with how I defined sapiens before? I can't remember if we've already had this conversation.
No, I don't remember.
Okay, so sapience is the third plane of existence because there's three. We already covered the physical. You know your bones and blood and meat and stuff like that. We already covered that. And you have a brain, which leads to the bridge to the second plane of existence, which is the mind. You understand that you are able to have thoughts and ideas that don't have physical properties, but are definitely real. And one of those thoughts and ideas is love, which has no physical properties, but you very eloquently described it, and I believe that is part of reality. And I agree with your your proposal. My, I guess I'm nitpicking at this point. Um, do you see any divide between the spiritual realm of just like abstract ideas and free will and wisdom and sapience and things like that?
I I don't quite get what you're. I
Okay,
don't quite get the
so
context of that
so
question.
so the main distinction between sentience and sapience is that sentience is simply the ability to perceive and process data. So whether or not you're a robot, AI, a animal, a human, they're all the same levels of sentience. They are aware of their surroundings, and they're
Okay.
even able to make limited amounts of decisions. Like they can choose to do this or not do that or whatever. The divide between sentience and sapience is free will. And so free will is this thing that, first of all, you'll never get an answer out of the atheists or the scientists from this because you can't detect it or find it or measure it or quantify it or anything. Um, and so sapience is what religious people refer to as the soul. That's what makes us different than animals.
Hmm.
So the reason why you have free will, by the way, and for example, like if you had a pet dog or something like that, he does not have free will, is that even though he is a sentient being, your dog may be sentient, like it's able to feel pain and react to pain and appear to be happy or appear to be sad or whatever because you're giving it rewards or punishment or all these other things that these feel like we're very similar things. Don't humans also laugh and cry and tickle and all that stuff? And so what makes us special? And so again, the wisdom, the ability to apply knowledge beyond the simple programming, the instincts, the conditioning and stuff like that is the soul realm, and that's the third realm, which definitely cannot be explained even with metaphysics. Like metaphysics can't explain um, how this is even possible, or what it is, or which one's more important, like which one has more control, your free will or your instincts. And so most deep philosophers kind of already know the answer to this question. Religious people already got the answer, so they don't even have to think about it. They don't even have to you know consider the possibility of what's right and wrong or whatever. They just already know the answer. They just know that, oh, there's a God, he created us, and we are free willed agents called humans, which you could kind of use the analogy of, like, maybe at one point we were angels and demons, we were just little spirits floating around in the ether, and then one day God decided to give us physical bodies. And so that transition into a physical body doesn't really change anything significantly, because you're still that free willed agent, that the mind ability, with the ability to perceive and process data. But the key difference is the soul. The soul is what separates us from animals.
But
So
I don't agree with that. I do think
okay,
that animals have souls.
they have spirits. They have spirits, but they don't have
Well,
souls.
I'm just telling you that's my perception.
Okay,
But I
that's why I'm
hear you.
trying to define these words. This is exactly why it is so important that we understand each other. Otherwise, we're going to just talk past each other, and you're not understand what I'm saying, and so
But
on.
nonetheless, in your view, or how you're putting this
Yeah.
vacuum, that's how it is. So okay, I accept that.
So in this metaphysical realm that science can't touch, by the way, because again, like I said, what are the physical properties of a spirit or a soul? Like how much does it weigh? How many
Right.
hydrogen atoms make it up, and blah blah blah. So, anyways, so now that we're
Well,
away from science, this is where it gets really difficult, because again, how much knowledge can humans have on this topic? And this is why it's so difficult, because
or should they have on this topic? Maybe we
uh,
shouldn't know certain things.
should we know about love? Is it important?
Uh, well, it's more important that we know it.
And understand it, and whether or not
Well, I
we're
don't no
experiencing
no, but
it?
that's where I'm distinguishing. I think it's less important that we understand love and more important that we know it. Because if we know it, then we're engaging with it. I mean, know in the sense of being a part of, utilizing, right, giving love towards ourselves, towards others, that sort of thing. That's what I mean
Okay,
when I say no. But as far as understanding the mechanics and these types of things, the nuance, I don't think that's important.
I understand that perspective, and so that's exactly my point. That was what I was saying. Like, we have plenty examples of that already. So that's why you have these people who in one room will be arguing with super religious people and super atheist giant brain PhDs or whatever, who are arguing about how dumb these religious people are because they don't understand anything. They don't even understand like basic math and basic logic. Yet they claim to have this like super deep knowledge and understanding of reality beyond what science can even touch. And so that's where you get this weird mishmash of people, yelling and screaming, making noises at each other, usually very passionately about whatever their, favorite religious text is or whatever. But it's still topics that either should be properly understood. Otherwise, we're just going to keep falling back into the same traps of just, monkeys making noises at each other, which I don't think is very productive exchange. But So I'm trying to kind of walk you through with me to see how I got here. I'm just showing you how I arrived at this process. And so where you kind of like stopped and you're like, I believe that love is the thing that's beyond science, beyond the physical realm, but I don't care how we got there. I don't care what the bridge is, what it looks like, how it works. I don't care about any of those things. And so that's fine. And like I said, that's one path in life. Um, however, that is going to be a major hurdle, if and when you do ever decide to like engage someone on the topic of religion, for example, because where I would tell you that not only is this love deity that you're referring to, not only is it real and does it exist, it's actually a person that you can interact with and learn from and seek guidance from and stuff. And so this is where we start going down the rabbit hole of religion and whether or not historical accounts are reliable. What we're talking about, how we should believe it or should not believe things. And so, on that note, what's your general bird's eye view of the whole religion thing throughout history? Like, let's just put all this philosophy stuff aside for a minute and just look at purely historically how humans have created their own religions and made certain claims about this is the one true God and why and blah blah blah. Like, what's your general overall thoughts on that whole picture?
Yeah, I guess I'd kind of say it's like sports. There's good, there's bad, there's who gives a fuck. I think that I know that religion can be utilized for good, and I think there's lots of incidents also of it being used for evil, right? And even according to the Bible, something to the effect that the false prophet will appear real, and many people buy into that. We have the very obvious, Joel Olsteins and these money mega churches and this type of bullshit. The wars fought over religion and Holy Land and all this bullshit. Whereas the actual basis of what it's supposed to be, to my understanding, revolving around is the faith itself. And so many people seem to lose any kind of meaning to that, and it just turns into, I don't know, almost an ego and therefore ego investment. How many people I've seen preach the Bible, try to utilize the Bible to fit whatever their purview is. So at times that's for evil, and they'll try to justify with a verse out of the Bible.
When you say faith, do you mean the verb trust or the noun evidence?
Trust
The
in a
verb
higher
trust.
power.
Okay.
Well, yeah.
Okay. So that's going to be very important later in our discussion. But anyways, so you see it sort of as just sort of some sort of like sociological condition in which local tribes tend to make up their own little myths and stuff, and then
Yeah, kind of. It's very divisive, and I think this has been a bigger, I mean, kind of meta topic is the divisiveness amongst religion has really been far from a good thing.
is it
Uh,
sort of like the divisiveness you see in science where some people believe in astronomy and some people believe in astrology?
uh, sure. I'm not well versed enough on either to really even make a
Oh, okay.
distinction, but
Astronomy is science in which like all the rocket scientists calculate the angle and momentum of planets.
okay.
Astrology are those retards that tell you that because you're a Leo today, you're going to meet a tall, dark stranger.
Right,
It's
right.
like
Yeah.
the people that studied the zodiacs and say that tells you which job you should get that day or whether or not you should vote Republican or whatever. So
Yeah.
I think you would
Yeah.
agree there's a difference in the quality of those two camps, correct?
The quality. There's definitely a difference in. There's a lot of difference. They're almost opposite, right? In a sense. One.
Not necessarily opposite, but definitely divergent. Like they both make claims about reality, about the same evidence. By the way, we're all looking at the same stars.
Yeah, but how they arrive at the conclusions must be much different. right?
Right. They definitely have different methodologies. They have different axioms and truth seeking tools. And so um, I'm trying to, black and white, make it as crystal clear as possible to you that what we're talking about, this is exactly what happens. This is what happens in religion. We're all looking at the same stars. Some people think that means, because you were born a Aries, that
Yeah.
you should, vote Democrat and you'll be the tall dark stranger today. Some humans think that looking at the stars is evidence that there are things out there in space, maybe called planets, stars, whatever, and that light travels in a certain direction in an angle and momentum and has this much energy and creates this many photons, and we can measure those things because we can measure shit on Earth and see how it works on Earth and then project our guesses into space and see if they match or not. And so again, exact same evidence, two different outcomes. And so this is the problem with religion. I would suggest this is why most humans just give up before they even start, because they feel like there is no way to find out the truth about religion because there is only astrology. That's our only choice.
Mm.
And so I would argue there is astronomy out there. There are good and intelligent people. I know it feels like we're extinct, but occasionally a white unicorn appears when all the stars align on a blue moon, and one last unicorn on Earth will appear if you can go into the magical forest and find him. So it is possible to good and intelligently approach any topic, whether it's science, philosophy, religion, all those things. And so I was trying to kind of show you how quickly this shit unravels, just talking about the easy topics like science. Like, why are we still debating like shit like chemistry, for example? Like, what chemistry is. You remember making the little volcanoes with the baking soda and the vinegar in elementary school?
Yeah, I
Okay,
nearly failed out of chemistry,
but
but yeah.
you understand that's real. Chemistry is real, and we can understand how it works. Correct?
Yeah, but then then you look at who was that dude on Joe Rogan? Terrence Howard, right? And he going into how the whole periodic table is. I mean, I watched a bit, and it was
You're right. There are people that debate whether or not atoms are real, and
one
whether
times one, one times one is two, right?
we've already covered that some people don't believe that water takes the form of ice and gas and liquid. It's magic. It's invisible dragons that explains how
Right.
that works. And so so I agree, there's the problem with humans. Some of them are a little retarded, some of them are full retarded. There's just a whole spectrum of evil retards out there. Anyways, I'm hoping to appeal and find some mildly intelligent people, which again, I kind of consider you somewhat intelligent, so please don't let me down.
The most intelligent
So you understand,
and your favorite YouTuber.
exactly, of course.
Right. All right. Very good.
Not delusion at all, and definitely not a bitch that will ruin the entire
Not a
fucking
bitch.
stream
No, no, no.
with questions that go into the weeds. But anyways, so you understand science is real. You understand chemistry is real. We understand the fundamentals of these things, correct?
Sure.
Okay. So that's, you got to have some point of reference to start from. I understand we are currently arguing even scientific topics like medicine and climate change and all kinds of other fun topics. That doesn't change the fact that most of us intelligent people agree we are not debating whether or not two hydrogen atoms and an oxygen atom forms a water molecule. We settled that debate decades ago. We know that for science fact now. We're not still sharing our feelings or interpretations or anything like that. It's science fact. We're moving on. The smart people accept it, move on. The retards are too busy chewing on the crayons to figure out what we're talking about. So it's fine. It's life. But once we start getting into religion, you run into the exact same problems. So now there is a logical and reasonable way to approach the knowledge of whether or not God exists. But you also, at the same time, have to deal with the people in the room who say things like, it's all just myths and feelings and fantasy, and don't worry about this holy text versus that holy text. All you humans are always arguing so much. Let's just all agree that there's this giant cosmic wheel, and we can all agree that there's this self-help book called Do Good Things and Avoid Bad Things. And by the way, I don't know if you're familiar with certain religions like Buddhism. Have you heard of Buddhism?
Yeah, I've heard of it, but I wouldn't say I don't know much about it.
I can tell you right now, I can make an educated guess. The more you hear about it, the more you're going to like it, because it basically coincides with a lot of things that you say and feel. And so basically what Buddhism was the rejection of Hinduism, and the Buddha was trying to teach people how to live good ethical lives and without appealing to a higher power or false gods in this case. And so that's why he became so popular. By the way, by the time his followers got to China, they already had Confucius anyway. So Buddhism and Confucianism were essentially the same thing. Buddhism was like the Indian version of self-help books, and Confucius was the Chinese version of self-help books. And so both of these are examples of ethics. This is where ethics can get you into the spiritual but not religious realm. So whenever you hear about people like Sam Harris and stuff like that, this may be your new guru, by the way. I don't know if you like him or not.
I'm familiar with Sam Harris.
He's probably going to be your lighthouse for now, because
I don't like anyone, but I know who he is.
I'm just saying, if you start thinking about these things, if you start the journey to answer the question, is there a God and can we know? And what is the truth about the existence of God?
I've done his meditations, by the way, and I got to tell you, because I was going to tell you a little bit ago, I got about 15 minutes left.
Okay, that's fine. We can wrap up soon. So what I was getting at is that's where we are at. You and I are at the point where I understand where you're coming from, and at some point I'll try to just give you like the elevator pitch of where I'm coming from, and to see if anything rings a bell or sounds like something that you want to hear more about or whatever.
Okay.
But long story short, you already know I'm a Christian. I believe in the Trinity. You know that obviously I believe in the Bible. You know that I believe that Jesus was a real person and was speaking truth the entire time he was talking, including claiming to be the Son of God, one with God, part of the Trinity, which is a whole nother can of worms we can get into. But long story short, obviously the God I believe in is the magic sky wizard that atheists refer to, that being out there that is the highest power. Love, as you put it. I like to call it truth too, depending on who I'm talking to. I understand that love is your highest power, but I like to start with truth and to see if it's the same word, like if they just equal 1-to-1 equation. So I would agree they are the same thing, but I like truth better, because in all these conversations, it's kind of hard to convince people that what we're talking about is love. When you're talking about, is 1 + 1 = 2? Is that love or is that truth? And so, it depends on who you're talking to, what floats their boat and all that stuff. So, so for my religion, I am going to just give you all the answers, and then we can walk our way back and figure out where you draw the line. And it sounds like you're kind of at that agnostic Buddhist kind of Confucius realm, where Sam Harris probably has the best outlook on life, on how to be smart about things, but at the same time not have to feel like you have to give in to some sort of fairy tales about believing in a god or whatever, and then getting into all that drama and stuff. And so we'll see where and when you want to go from there. So that was today's topic of religion. Do you have any parting thoughts, future thoughts, old news you want to cover, or anything like that?
Nah, I mean, nothing I can think of.
Okay. Well, I do appreciate you stopping by and
I'm the
listening.
best.
and listening to me rant for a while about the topic of religion. Oh, by the reason why I am now talking about religion is because we lost the politics war, as you recall recently. I told you
Yes,
I don't
your
even.
libertarianism religion has died
Yes,
for you.
yes. Our sacred cow was slayed, and so it is no more. Our culture war is lost, and um, there's no point in debating economics and stuff like that. Even though, of course, humans still do it, but and so since there is nothing else to discuss, now we're back down to just simple truth claims about whether or not 1 + 1 = 2, and whether or not there is a higher power and all that jazz. So anyways, for anyone else who's interested, I do preach Christianity, and I will debate any religion. Oh, by the way, there's your party thought based. I just remembered what I was going to tell you. Here's a freebie. I'm going to throw you a bone. If you ever have a debate with Andrew Wilson, all you got to do is ask him these questions. Ask him, how does one become a Christian, and let him answer that question. At some point, he'll probably accidentally bring up baptism, and then ask him, is before you ask the final question, make sure for clarification, say, is baptism required or optional? Is it like, a command, or is it just like a feeling, or if you want to kind of thing? And he'll probably say, yes, it's commanded, it's required to become a Christian. And then the final question you ask him is baptism voluntary or involuntary? And then watch his mental gymnastics start as he squirms around and realizes he's not even a Christian. So there you go. There's your free bone. You can destroy him. That takes about 30 seconds to completely ruin his entire religion. But anyways, you don't have to know anything else about Christianity. All you have to do is ask those questions, just as I gave it to you, and he'll lose that debate. Anyways, I wish you all luck with your fraud debate, and whether not grifting debate on whether or not you're going to convince the audience that he's clearly a grifter or not. I see where you're coming from, but it's like, I think there's already a lot of people that are, even if you make lots of good points and have all this evidence, they're just going to be like, yeah, but he's still a nice guy and he means well. And
even if I was God, most people would not believe it. So, I get your point, but
yeah, but I look forward to it because I want to see how it works out. Didn't you say there was another quick debate he was inviting you to? Is that still happening, or no?
Well, it's already passed. He had
You went there?
messaged. No, no, no.
Oh, it didn't happen.
I agreed, and then we had a topic all agreed upon, and then last minute he says, now you have to ask me please and say thank you.
Oh, fuck him. See, this is why I don't argue with these people, by the way. I don't
So
have time for this shit.
I said, sure, if you ask me please and thank me for me to ask you please and thank you, then sure. And that was that.
By the way, you entered Conservataria and you didn't hail the Emperor Phi, so I'm gonna exile you from this kingdom unless you bend the knee. You said you had to go, right? Like in 5 minutes?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. No, you didn't say that. I'm exiling you from my kingdom. Bend the knee or leave, pleb.
Exile away.
Okay. Anyways, let me know when you're ready for weedy questions, because those are my favorite kind, because I love questions that get us way lost in the weeds. So feel free to use my channel. Use my channel just for any random, weird weed shit that you love to get into. So
all right. Well, I'm getting into morality tonight. Morality combat.
Oh, and, where on whose channel? Where?
Mine.
Oh, you got. I will arrive at wizard time.
All right. Very good.
And no more girls bitching and soldiers bitching. We got important shit to talk about.
Yeah. We'll see what happens. I got a few things I'm working on, and
by the way,
taking my time.
Did you and GS kiss and make up? Because it was just stupid to get the stuff y'all were arguing over. But anyways, did y'all eventually make up? I missed it. Did you have like an after party or anything?
After party.
Like when you go offline and then you still keep talking to each other in chat rooms or whatever.
Yeah, backstage.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Did y'all? We're cool.
Okay. Because it was just silly that obviously he posted some cringe. I understand your point, But you also kept asking him. You kept asking him, whoa, there's these people in the comments that keep accusing you of this shit. What do you have to say about that? And then you got surprised when he starts spurging out about it, because obviously he's going to be very upset about these stalkers, constantly fucking with him. But anyways, it's just so easy and quick to solve. But
Easy and quick.
you delusional bitches can't ever figure your shit out. So that's why
Right.
I got to come in there and wreck shit. Anyways, all right. I totally appreciate it. I had fun. I was hoping to get into a whole lot more religion, but it sounds like you're still in the Buddhist Confucian phase. So maybe I can walk you out of that in the next episode. So
All right. Maybe.
all right, we'll see. We'll see. Just give me a sporting chance. But okay. Well, Based Oracle's got to go. So he didn't bend the knee to Emperor I-Fi. So fuck you. Get out of my kingdom.
Here I go.
Get out. Okay, so that's what happens when you don't bend the knee to Emperor Phi. All will hail Emperor Phi. Now, if there's anyone in the comments that wants to jump in and take some shots, today's topic is religion. I'd really like to talk about religion, but if you really want to talk about like politics or culture, I guess we can talk about that too. But any takers, you're more than welcome to come up now or forever hold your peace. Also, for future reference, DeFreak or anyone else, or anyone that has religious concerns, this would probably be a good time. I might start doing like a regular, like a Sunday cast where I do like the Church of Conservataria, and so thank you for your magic spell somewhere in time. I feel blessed. Did you want to come up and talk religion, or no? Because I'm getting ready to wrap up here. I'll hang around for about another 20 or 30 minutes and see if anybody wants to talk about stuff. But if not, I understand. Most people are pretty chill on Sunday anyway. So hi Cynthia, thanks for stopping by. Hope you had a good time. And sorry, major problem. I don't ever read comments while I'm talking, so it's an interesting paradox how much time us humans spend physically expressing, trying to show this metaphysical concept of love. I agree. And what does that even mean? Words and ideas and stuff. Anywho, if anyone knows Joshua from Ready to Harvest, please send him over, because I want him to have the courage to debate religion, because I think it's an important topic. But most humans are scared and they don't like it when you hurt their feelings. So, I'm not expecting anything, but feel free to surprise me. Foghorn Leghorn. Oh, it's been so long. I can't even remember how to do an impression of him. Well, I'll be this here little chickie just doesn't know what he's doing. I don't know. I haven't watched those cartoons in so long. I'm old. Oh, thanks for the blessings, Sit. Ditto to you. Right back at you. Blessings to you and your fams. And I'm glad I introduced you to Neurojack, because again, he has the capacity to keep up with any and every rabbit hole you have to offer him. I just don't want to feel like I don't want you to get the impression that I don't care about what you're talking about. It's just more that I have trouble keeping up, because I have to like mentally process every single word you're saying. And some of that stuff just like wears me out really quick. And so I've only got a finite amount of energy, and most of it's devoted to religion and conservataria. So those are my two favorite topics. But I've got good news, Sit. There are no conspiracies in conservataria. That's one of the requirements of my kingdom, is that all government has to be completely transparent. We're all subject to the same laws that all the plebs are. So the emperor doesn't get to get away with murder, while it's illegal for everyone else. And so it's fair and balanced. It's truth, love, all that stuff. All that stuff that Based Oracle was talking about. Hopefully, I can bring him over to the dark side soon, and we can make a useful citizen out of him. But until then, I'll have to keep doing the same routine I do with everyone else. So, I had fun. I'm always available for religion. That's my number one priority. I don't care what day or thread I'm in. Religion's always the first topic. The second topic is capitalism, because you can't build a libertarian government without it. So those are non-negotiable. And then fourthly, we can debate meritocracy and rule this earth with conservataria as the one true global nation that will unite us all of us good and intelligent people. And then we'll just ship all the evil retards to Mars, and then we'll be done with it. And that's the end of the story. And they all lived happily ever after. Amen. Bye bye.